Hello, everyone. My name is Scarlet, and I'm a married woman, but my marriage is a living nightmare. I was 30 years old when I tied the knot with Henry, a man who was supposed to love and cherish me. But our union was not born out of love, it was a cruel transaction. My parents were drowning in debt, and Henry's family was the ruthless creditor. To save my family from being thrown to the street, I sacrificed my happiness and agreed to marry a man who saw me as nothing more than a pawn. Every day, I'm reminded of the hell I've endured. My husband, Henry, is a carbon copy of his heartless father, same sharp features, same cold eyes. Behind closed doors, I've suffered unbearable physical, emotional, and spiritual abuse. My husband and his parents have ridiculed me, belittled me, and broken me. I'm a shell of the woman I once was. My life is a constant struggle to survive, to find a glimmer of hope in a world that seems determined to crush me. I hate my life. I hate my husband, and I hate his parents. I feel trapped, suffocated by the weight of their cruelty. My parents, whom I sacrificed my happiness for, are still struggling to make ends meet. And to make matters worse, they're also facing constant embarrassment and humiliation from my husband's parents. The weight of their suffering and the embarrassment they're facing is crushing me. I'm torn between my love for them, my desire to protect them, and my hatred for the people who have destroyed my body and soul. Watch my story to see the cruel and miserable life I was forced to live and the twist of fate that changed everything. Once you've seen the whole series, I would love to hear from you. If you were in my shoes, what would you do?
Henry, a 30-year-old wealthy young man and a carbon copy of his father, married a beautiful woman named Scarlet, but not out of love. Instead, their marriage was a result of a debt Scarlet parents owed Henry's family. Scarlet's family first met Henry's father in an unusual way. He often parked his car in front of Scarlet parents' pastry shop, sending his driver inside to buy pastries. But then, one day, his car had a flat tire right in front of the shop, with no choice but to step out and wait for the vulcanizer to do his job. He went inside the shop and sat down. He observed Scarlet's parents as they ran the shop. They worked together seamlessly and exchanged laughter as they baked and served customers. Intrigued, Henry's father approached them and said, "I'm sorry to ask, but are you two related? The chemistry between you is remarkable." The couple chuckled, and Scarlet's father replied, "Yes, we're husband and wife." Henry's father nodded. "I see. That explains it. Your bond is something special." They all shared a laugh. Minutes later, his driver came in and informed him that his tire had been repaired. With that, he bid them farewell and left. A few days later, Henry's father returned alone, as his driver was not around. He stepped into the shop. The smell of fresh pastries filled his nostril, but something was missing: the usual warmth and the cheerful laughter he had felt on his first visit. Behind the counter, Scarlet's mother was kneading dough, her hands moving slower than before. When she looked up and saw him, she wiped her hands on her apron and offered a welcome greeting with a tired smile. "You're alone today," Henry's father said, glancing around. She wiped her hands on her apron and replied in a quiet voice, "Yes, my husband is resting," Henry's father repeated. "Resting?" She exhaled, her fingers tightening on the edge of the counter, and said in a forced tone, "He is resting because he's sick." Henry's father's brows furrowed. "Sick? That sounds serious. How is he doing now?" For a moment, she hesitated and asked herself, "Should I tell this man about our predicament? No, I don't need to share our problems with a stranger. But what if I keep silent and we can't find the money we need? What if something happens to my husband? No, nothing must happen to him. I have to try." Maybe he can help. He looks wealthy." She sighed and said in a shaky voice, "He's not doing too well. He has kidney disease and needs a transplant. He needs treatment, but we don't have enough money to cover the costs. We barely have 2/10 of the money he needs because of his dialysis. We have tried everything, but the money just isn't enough. I don't care if it's a loan. I would gladly take it. I just don't want anything bad to happen to my husband." Henry's father watched her carefully. The exhaustion in her eyes, the way she held herself. It was clear she had been carrying this burden for too long. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a sleek business card with his house address and placed it on the counter. He said, "Come by my house tomorrow. It would be better if your husband can manage to follow you. But if that's not possible, please bring a guarantor." Scarlet's mother looked down at the card, her fingers trembling slightly as she picked it up. A warm smile spread across her face as she exclaimed, "Thank you, thank you," her gratitude pouring out uncontrollably. Then she attended to him and completed the pastry purchase that had brought him to her shop in the first place, and he left. The next day, Scarlet's mother arrived at Henry's parents' house with her husband, who was very weak. They were ushered into the grand sitting room, where Henry's father sat comfortably. Beside him was a middle-aged man in an orange suit and glasses. Henry's father opened his mouth and introduced him. "This is my bank manager. He will handle the loan process." Scarlet's parents exchanged nervous glances. Henry's father looked at their expressions and said, "You mentioned that you needed money yesterday and that you didn't care even if it's a loan. So I am ready to lend you any amount, but it won't be just a simple borrowing. There would be legal documents, terms, and conditions." The bank manager leaned forward and said, "Before we proceed, how much money do you need for the loan?" Scarlet's mother told him the amount. The bank manager replied, "For such a large sum, we need to establish a guarantee. What will you use as collateral?" Scarlet's mother's hands trembled slightly as she reached for her husband's. We only have our small house and the pastry shop," she said hesitantly. "Okay, then we'll need the original documents for your house and shop to minimize our risk. Can you bring them now?"